Hello, welcome back to Simon's Rants. I'm Simon, and today I'm going to be starting a new series called On Second Thoughts. So, On Second Thoughts is going to be basically the same sort of setup as First Thoughts, where it's kind of just me, unedited, unscripted, just kind of ranting about a movie I just watched. Now, in First Thoughts, though, it's me walking directly out of a theater for a movie I've seen for the first time, whereas on Second Thoughts, it's going to be an older movie that I've seen maybe multiple times and been able to sit back and develop an actual opinion on. So this is going to, be a more accurate representation of my real thoughts on a movie rather than something like First Thoughts of Bohemian Rhapsody, where I walked out of the theater thinking, oh, this was a great movie, and then I do a little research and go, that wasn't quite as good as I thought. So I want to start off this new series by talking about Fight Club. Because I just watched Fight Club. It was something I put off for years because I already knew the twist ending. I knew all the references and the jokes and the quotes, and I kind of just wasn't in any sort of rush to see it because of that. Before I get into this, though, spoiler warning. But if you haven't seen this yet, you just should. And if you don't know the spoilers yet, I don't know what rock you've been under because I wasn't able to avoid spoilers of this movie despite not having seen it for so long. So, good for you, I guess. But this movie was really interesting because it was still really good despite knowing the twists to it ahead of time. Some movies aren't, like Sixth Sense. Watching that, knowing the ending, you're kind of just bored at times going, yeah, I get this. Or you kind of just notice stuff that doesn't make sense in the Sixth Sense. This one is really well written. And having already known the twist, I was still very entertained and I was looking for little details and there was plenty to look at. Actually, sitting there watching and I was thinking, if I didn't know the twist ending, I would have been fooled because I was looking at something else. They kind of mislead you a little bit into thinking that Brad Pitt was the one who blew up Ed Norton's apartment. And you don't really know why, but you see him talk about how to make bombs, and then you hear him talking about it again later, right after the cop had called and said, hey, by the way, the person that blew up your apartment used bombs. They didn't actually, there wasn't a gas fire or a gas leak like we thought. It was an actual bomb, homemade bomb. So there's clever enough writing in it that having already seen it or known it, you still have a lot to watch, a lot to see, something that I think shows that the writing's good. Because, like I mentioned, in The Sixth Sense, once you know the plot twist, you're kind of just bored. Or you see, how could you go a whole year without realizing nobody talked to you? It's just, regardless, this isn't a review of that. This is Fight Club, which I shouldn't even be talking about. I considered starting at the review with, I'm not going to talk about it. Not to talk about it. But I was like, that'd be stupid. So I'm going to talk about it. That's kind of my channel. So, yeah. Great acting. The writing is really good. This movie is considered a classic, and it definitely deserves that title. It's not a perfect film. I don't want to mislead anybody who hasn't seen this yet to think that it's a perfect film. It's not. There's some weird things about it, especially the ending doesn't make sense to me. So if you haven't seen it yet, but you don't care about spoilers, I'd be really amazed if that's the case. Spoiler, Brad Pitt is not a real person. He's Ed Norton's alternate personality or imaginary friend or whatever. He's insane and he sees a double of himself. And he's fighting back and forth with him, and it gets cheesy a little bit. You see himself dragging himself across the room, and I thought of Me, Myself, and Irene, which kind of did the same thing, except I think a little bit better because it looked more realistic, because it literally was just Jim Carrey dragging himself around. It definitely looked like Ed Norton was being dragged by something. There's no way you could have done that. And if he did, props to him, because that was amazing. But secondly, he finally goes to kill his alternate personality. And you get this cool little thing where he's like, you're not holding the gun, I'm holding the gun. And he's like, and if I kill myself, you die. And so you're like, oh, cool, he's going to kill himself. That's a crazy ending that I'm surprised I didn't hear about before. How did I not hear about this? That's amazing. That's interesting. And then he puts his gun in his mouth, and I'm like, you're not aiming at the right spot? And then he shoots, and it comes out the side, which one would have broken his jaw, and two would have, released that artery, and he would have died very quickly. But he ends up just sounding like he has a cold, and he's like, oh, yeah, that hurts a lot, oh boy. And you're like, are you sure? Are you sure that's your reaction? And then on top of that, for some reason kills Brad Pitt, um, even though Brad Pitt was in his mind, not his jugular. I don't know. That didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I haven't like Googled people's explanations, but unless there's some sort of deep explanation about the psyche and if you hurt yourself, yada yada yada. I don't know. That doesn't make sense to me, and I thought it was cheesy, and I thought it was weird, and that's unfortunate because I thought the rest of the movie was basically perfect. But the thing is, since the rest of the movie is basically perfect, it was still very enjoyable despite that. There's another couple of nitpicks with the movie is that there's an overuse of CGI for no reason, which is unfortunate because it made it age really poorly. This is in the same era as The Matrix, which you see how poorly that CGI aged. This is the same thing. You've got the shot where it's going in through the trash can, or actually coming out of the trash can, and it's so obviously just computer generated. And it's like, why didn't you get one of those cameras that's like, you've seen like that's on the end of the tube, and you can it's like for doctors to look down in your stomach and stuff. But you could have put like that into the trash can. That would have been a cool shot if it was actually real, but it wasn't. And maybe there's some sort of technical difficulties that they couldn't make that work. I don't know. Maybe that camera wasn't really around for their use back then. Regardless, the CGI in this movie is just bad at times. That was a notable time. Another notable time was there was a sex scene that was like 90% CGI and it looked stupid. And then when he shoots himself in the mouth, they do it in slow-mo so you can see like his face ripple in the light, and it's all CGI and it looks bad. It looks bad, and it's like, well, you didn't have to do that. You could have found a different way to do it. So that's unfortunate, but just the writing is so good that I didn't really care about that stuff as much. Also, the acting is great. You've got Ed Norton and Brad Pitt, who are two of the best actors of this era, and they both are acting phenomenally. They both have a little bit of ad-libbing in there that's great. If you don't know, Ed Norton hitting Brad Pitt in the ear was ad-libbed. Well, it was a conversation that he had between him and Fincher, and they came up with that together, and then he did it, and Brad Pitt's reaction is genuine, and that was awesome, and it's fun to notice stuff like that. So this movie is very good. It's very well written. It's a well-oiled machine, but there are just a couple of missing gears, unfortunately. It's like everything else is in place to make this like one of the greatest movies of all time, but then there's a couple of missing pieces that kind of just throw off the whole thing, so it doesn't quite work. Like I mentioned with the ending and with the explanation of we'll blow up the credit card company's headquarters so that debt will be erased, and it's like that's not how it works. I don't even. Well, maybe it did back then. I don't think though. I don't think that's how it worked. But regardless, there's just a couple of things like that, or I don't know. Stuff with Meatloaf was weird. I guess some people found that funny. I didn't. I was just kind of uncomfortable, but. I don't know, product of the times. Something that I was surprised that everybody would leave out when talking about this movie, because it's kind of prominent, if you know what I mean. It's prominent. But like I said, these are all nitpicks because the rest of the movie's so good. It is so well written, so well acted. There's so many cool little things that you pick up on, having already known the twist and everything. Especially the dialogue between him and Helena Bonham Carter, him being Ed Norton, where you hear she knows what's going on, but he doesn't, and that's very hard to do in movies because it can be very cheesy. It can be very hard to do that without being cheesy because it's so easy to fall into the traps of they're obviously avoiding saying it, but she was saying it. He was just hearing it wrong. She calls him crazy. She says that he's being a douchebag or whatever because he's so non-committal, and he's like, what do you mean? I haven't led you on at all. I haven't done anything. You're the crazy one. And it all seems to make sense from his side, or rather not make sense, however you want to put it. But when you see it in retrospect or hindsight, you understand what she was saying that whole time, and that was done very well. Kind of similar to in The Prestige, which is another movie that does that phenomenally, where his wife says, oh, spoilers if you haven't seen this. His wife says, "I know what you are," and that's a little castaway, a little throwaway line that you don't really pick up on unless you already know the plot. If you already know the twist in that movie, which is phenomenal and even better than this movie. Oh, unpopular opinion. Maybe, I don't even know if that's an unpopular opinion. But anyway, so yeah, this movie I hadn't seen for a long time, put it off, didn't know how I'd feel about it, and I ended up coming out of it thinking it was a great movie. Like I said, couple little things here and there, but overall, very enjoyable. Despite knowing it, don't let that stop you from watching it. I knew it, and I knew everything about this movie except for Meatloaf, and I was not disappointed. So, Meatloaf was a little disappointing. But yeah, no, the dialogue is so well written. The fight scenes are a lot of fun. Well, depends on your definition of fun. It's very dark. It's very creepy. It's very demented. I did hear one person tell me about seeing it for the first time a long time ago, and they said that it was a great movie, but they had no desire to watch it again. And I understand that opinion. That's not my opinion. I will definitely want to watch this again. I enjoyed it a lot, and I look forward to wanting to watch it again. But I can definitely see that opinion where somebody would watch this and go, "Oh, that was demented. That was just screwed up. I don't want to see that again." To me, I didn't really feel the same way. I thought that it was a very good story. Bit cheesy at the end, bit contrived, but other than that, very good. And yeah, the anti-government, anti-establishmentarianism or whatever is kind of overdone, but it's a product of the time, and you have to see it for that. Like, this is late 90s, early 2000s era where that's kind of just, that's what everybody was doing, and this did it well. There's plenty of other movies that don't do it nearly as well. So even if you don't care for that message as much, that doesn't mean that they didn't do it well. So yeah, those are my thoughts on it. Glad that I finally got around to seeing it. I hope you guys like this new style of video, or this new series of videos. Can you shut up? That's the elevator. That's very loud. You've heard that in other videos, I'm sure, but these ones are always annoying because it's unedited and I can't cut it out. But I hope you guys do like this new series, because I'm hoping to do it a lot. I like this idea. It's something that's easier for me to do, especially now. I'm sorry, I've been a lot busier ever since moving here, getting a different job. It's been a lot harder to do this consistently, so I want to do something that I knew I could do consistently, especially when I get into a rut with a certain video, or I start having problems with my computer again, which happens a decent amount. Working with a laptop isn't always the best thing in the world. Or, I'm coming up crunch time. I spent a lot of time on last week's video, and then this week's video is just draining, stuff like that. I just hit the cord. Stuff like that. This makes it a lot easier. So, like this week, for instance, I'm working on a review right now. There's no way I'm getting it done anytime soon. All of the above is happening. I'm tired. I'm busy with work. Going away this weekend. And on top of that, my computer's acting up. So I just hope you guys like this new kind of series. I also want to mention my new merch. If you haven't seen it yet, I've got new stuff. So I've already had the t-shirts, the hoodies, stuff like that. Now I'm getting more mugs. I'm getting hats, stuff like that. So go ahead and check that out. The link is in the description. It is, I think it's all high quality. I've bought some of it myself. I've looked at it. I've got some of the stuff. It's good, and I like it a lot. So I hope you guys like it, and I hope you guys buy some, support the channel. And of course, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. It helps me out a lot, guys. Also, thank you for 250. I know it's a small milestone, but that was my goal at the beginning of this year to get to by August. In case you aren't aware, I started my channel in August, and that's how I count my years. So I got my goal, which I didn't know that I would. So thanks, guys, for helping me get there. Love all you guys. Thanks.